The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our E-Invoicing webinar. And thank you for joining us today. My name is Siti Sarifah, and I am your speaker for today's session. Many of you may have heard about this e-invoicing, electronic invoicing, and seeing trends that more and more countries are beginning to adopt this e-invoicing. What is this e-invoicing? Is it just a simply an electronic invoice that your company can send across email, or what is more? So in today's sessions, right, we would like to share with you what is this e-invoicing and how Sage, right, how at Sage we managed to implement, we successfully implement our e-invoicing into our Sage 300. And we hope, right, by end of today's session, you will have a better picture of this e-invoicing and how Sage 300 e-invoicing works to capture your country requirement for the e-invoicing. And without further ado, let's start our today's session by looking at today's agenda. Okay, in today's agenda, in the introduction chapter, we will take a look at what is this electronic invoicing and what are the benefits that you may get by switching your current invoice process to a digitalized e-invoicing. And in the next slide also, right, we will explain to you what is this PEPPOL and some of the PEPPOL standard and technology. All right, before we go further, right, I just want to briefly explain to all of you. PEPPOL is actually a module that some countries use the technologies behind to implement their e-invoicing. If the countries, right, decide to use PEPPOL as their e-invoicing framework, it has to follow some of the standard and business rules used and defined by PEPPOL globally. Okay, and in the next slide also, we will take a look at how actually Singapore government successfully implement their e-invoicing into their country. And furthermore, the next slide, right, we will actually briefly explain to you how Sage 300 e-invoice work. We will demonstrate to you in general what are the basic concepts used by Sage 300 e-invoicing work, from creating invoice in your creating invoice in Sage 300, okay, and then sending your e-invoice to your customer via the PEPPOL network, okay. And in the next slide also, we will demonstrate to you how easy from Sage 300 e-invoicing you can get yourself a unique PEPPOL ID that is belong to your company, okay. You can use our registration module to get yourself a unique PEPPOL ID that is uniquely belong to your company. Okay, and in the next slide, right, we will also share with you what are the setup required by this Sage 300 e-invoicing. For example, right, your customer, your vendor, you need to do some maintenance on this customer and vendor setup screen before you can actually sending or receive invoice from them. Okay, and we will also take a look at some of the additional setup required by the Sage 300 e-invoicing. For example, your currency code mapping, your invoice retrieval age, you need to do some setup on this screen as well. Okay, and we will also share with you what are the security that has been implemented so far by the Sage 300 e-invoicing, so that, right, you can restrict access to only user that has a permission to access to this Sage 300 e-invoicing. Okay, and in the next slide, right, we will have a product demonstration in Sage 300, how you can use Sage 300 e-invoicing to send your invoice, to send your e-invoice to your customer. Of course, before we go to the product demonstration, we will have a checklist, what needs to be prepared by your side before you can actually consume this e-invoicing, this Sage 300 e-invoice to send your e-invoice to your customer. Okay, similar case when you want to receive your supplier invoice. Okay, for example, your supplier invoice you, your supplier send you invoice in PEPPOL network, and then you want to grab this invoice and then import this into Sage 300 AP module. We will have a product demonstration on this as well. And of course, right, before we go to the product demonstration page, okay, we will have a checklist. We will go through some of the checklists, some of the basic requirement that is required by this module. Okay, and then in the summary chapter, we will go through back what we have discussed so far, what we have shared with you during today's session, and some of the highlight. Okay, especially from my understanding, right, in today's session, there's a lot of participants from Malaysia. So we will share with you what are some information that we know so far for the Malaysia e-invoice implementation later. Okay, and of course, right, if you have question, you may raise it during Q&A session. So, without further ado, we will start our presentation today.
What is e-invoicing? E-invoicing, also known as electronic invoicing, is the process of creating, sending, receiving, and managing invoices electronically. It involves the automated exchange of invoice data between businesses or organizations in a structured digital format, rather than using traditional paper-based invoices. This means with e-invoicing, you will be able to send or receive invoices from your customer or supplier directly to your accounting systems without any human intervention. E-invoicing can be implemented through various methods, such as online invoicing platforms, electronic data interchange, EDI, email with PDF attachments, or integration between accounting and enterprise resource planning, ERP, systems. It's important to note that the specifics of e-invoicing, including legal requirements, technical standards, and implementation approaches, can vary from country to country and between different industries. Organizations interested in adopting e-invoicing should consider consulting with experts and understanding the relevant regulations and standards in their respective jurisdictions. Benefit of using e-invoicing. E-invoicing offers several benefits over traditional paper-based invoicing. Some of these advantages include cost savings. E-invoicing eliminates the need for paper, printing, and postage costs associated with traditional invoices. It also reduces manual processing efforts, leading to time and labor savings. Improved accuracy. By minimizing manual data entry and automating processes, e-invoicing reduces the chances of errors and discrepancies in invoice data. Faster processing and payment cycles. Electronic invoices can be delivered instantly and directly to the recipient's systems, enabling faster processing, approval, and payment cycles. This can improve cash flow and reduce delays in payment. Enhanced efficiency. E-invoicing streamlines the entire invoicing process, from creation to payment. It enables automated validation, matching, and reconciliation of invoices, reducing the need for manual intervention and speeding up the overall workflow. Regulatory compliance. Many countries and regions have implemented or are moving towards mandatory e-invoicing initiatives to enhance tax compliance, reduce fraud, and improve transparency in business transactions. Adopting e-invoicing helps organizations stay compliant with these regulations. PEPL is an international e-procurement framework. It's developed and maintained by Open PEPL, an international nonprofit association. Open PEPL standardizes the way information is structured and exchanged. PEPL uses a four-corner model to exchange documents and data. It transmits data through a secure network of approved service providers called access points. This is how the four-corner PEPL model look like. At corner 1, you have invoice issue and send by your supplier. Corner 2 is the sender's access point, while corner 3 is the receiver's access point. Lastly, at corner 4, you have invoice recipient, also known as the buyer. PEPL standard and technology. The PEPL network consists of a series of components that interact with each other, enabling the exchange of documents and information between enterprises and public administrations. These are some of the standards technology used by PEPL globally among participant countries. Access points. These are service providers that connect the participants to the PEPL network. Access points receive and deliver electronic documents, such as e-invoices, between trading partners. Access point will validate each electronic invoices that send over to PEPL network to ensure it meets with PEPL standard protocols. PEPL Business Interoperability Specifications, BIS. These are a set of standardized data formats and syntaxes that ensure the consistency and compatibility of electronic documents exchanged through the network. BIS defines the structure and content of various business documents, including e-invoices, purchase orders, catalogs, and more. BIS is defined in UBL-XML format. PEPL Directory. It is a centralized directory that contains information about the participants in the network, such as their identification codes, contact details, and preferred service providers. The directory allows organizations to easily locate and connect with their trading partners. The Singapore government has implemented e-invoicing through a national initiative known as the Invoice Now. Here are the key components of Singapore's e-invoicing implementation. PEPL Network. Singapore utilizes the Pan-European Public Procurement Online PEPL Network as the underlying infrastructure for e-invoicing. The PEPL network enables secure and standardized electronic document exchange between businesses, including e-invoices. Access points. The Singapore government has designated several authorized access point service providers to facilitate the exchange of e-invoices. These service providers act as intermediaries, connecting businesses to the PEPL network and ensuring the secure transmission of e-invoices. Singapore Standard. The Singapore government has developed the SG PEPL BIS Billing 3.0 to provide a common format and structure for e-invoices. SG PEPL BIS Billing 3.0 defines the necessary fields, data elements, and syntax requirements for e-invoices exchanged within the Singapore e-invoicing ecosystem. Integration with accounting software. To facilitate seamless adoption, businesses are encouraged to integrate their accounting software with the authorized access point service providers. This integration allows for the direct creation, transmission, and processing of e-invoices from within the accounting software itself. Compliance and interoperability. The Singapore e-invoicing framework ensures compliance with regulatory requirements and promotes interoperability between different systems and software applications. The use of standardized formats in the PEPL network facilitates seamless exchange of e-invoices between businesses, regardless of their individual systems. How Sage 300 e-invoicing work. From Sage 300, the first step is to create invoices using Sage 300 Sales Module. Once your invoice is posted, you can use Sage 300 Invoice Now module to send your invoices to our access point provider, Sesame. Before it goes to access point provider, Sage 300 will generate the invoices based on structure defined by PEPL. And each invoices will be encrypted to ensure the security is achieved before it's sent over to PEPL network. On PEPL network, PEPL will validate your invoices and send your invoices to your customer or supplier access point provider before it will reach to your customer or supplier accounting systems. Registration of PEPL ID. To get started, the first step to adopting e-invoicing for Sage 300 customers is to create a PEPL ID. Your PEPL ID is a unique identifier where your customers and suppliers will be able to reach you via the PEPL network. Think of it as creating an email address for your suppliers to send you invoices or for your customers to receive your invoices. With Sage 300, you can easily register your company on PEPL network before you can start using e-invoicing. To get your PEPL ID using Sage 300 e-invoicing module, you need to complete your company registration by fill in mandatory information required such as your company nature of business. Click on Industry column to select your company's specific industry. You will also need to fill in your company contact information such as the person in charge full name, designation, phone number and email address. Once you have completed all the mandatories information, click on Register button to register your company into PEPL network and get your unique PEPL ID under your company name. After you click on Register button, Sage 300 will appear a message box to ask for your consent if you want to get listed on PEPL directories. This directories will help your customer or supplier to find you on the PEPL network. Click on Yes if you wish to be part of the global PEPL directories search. This will help you to make you expand your business internationally since PEPL is used globally and many countries has adapted PEPL solutions such as United Kingdom, Japan, Australia and Southeast Asia. Once your registration completed, you will see your registration status has been changed to registered, and if you select on Yes during PEPL directories listing consent, you will see under PEPL directories the value is set to publish and you can find your company name in PEPL directories. Customer Setup. Once your registration has been verified, and you get a unique PEPL ID assigned to you, the next step you need to do is on the Customer Maintenance screen. When you first open this screen, the listing information display in this screen such as customer number, customer name and BRN number is automatically picked up from your Sage 300 Customer Master screen. If you wish to edit the details of your specific customer, you can double-click on the customer name and Sage 300 will bring you to the correct customer entry. In this Customer Maintenance screen, you need to fill in your customer PEPL ID that will be used when sending e-invoice to your customer. Please note that a PEPL ID is a way for you to reach your customer if they are on the PEPL network. Therefore, it is mandatory to have your customer PEPL ID before you can send e-invoice to them. You will also need to fill in attention to column with the person in charge name that will respond to this e-invoice. Once you have done, click on Save button to save your changes. Vendor Setup. After you have completed your customer setup, you will also need to do the same maintenance on the vendor maintenance setup. The vendor setting is important for mapping the transaction reside on PEPL access point provider. It will retrieve the basic information from Sage 300 AP vendor setting, such as vendor number, vendor name and business registration number, BRN. Double-click on the vendor name will bring you to the Sage 300 AP vendor master screen. The first step is to fill in your supplier PEPL ID in the PEPL ID column. This will allow you to receive e-invoices from your supplier registered on PEPL network. Once you have done, click on Save button to save your entries. Additional setup. Apart from customer and vendor maintenance setup, there is also general setup that is required by Sage 300 e-invoice to operate smoothly, such as invoice retrieval ages, currencies setting, and more. For more details, you may refer to the full user guide in this locations. Security. Security is defined in the administrative services under security groups. Please note that security is only enabled if you have turned it on for the company in Sage 300 Database Setup, DB Setup. For more information in this, please refer to Sage 300 Administrative Services User Guide for more information. The security group functions in Sage 300 allow you to set and limit the number of group users that can have access to some of the module in Sage 300 e-invoice. These are 4 areas that can be set to secure the usage of this Sage 300 e-invoice module. 1. Setup and maintenance. 2nd. Send PEPL invoices. 3rd. Receive PEPL invoices. 4th. Transaction report. To define access control for each user group, you need to select the user group ID and tick or untick each module that you would like this group of user to have access to. For the best practice, we recommend that you limit the use of this module only to employees that has a need to send and or receive PEPL invoices. Sending e-invoice using Sage 300. Before you can start sending e-invoice to PEPL network, these are few checking that is added in Sage 300. First, you have completed your company registration with PEPL network and you have been assigned with a unique PEPL ID belong to your company. If you have not completed your company registration number, Sage 300 will not allow you to open the screen. Second, only invoices belong to customers that are assigned with a PEPL ID will be retrieved for e-invoice processing. This is to ensure that your invoice will not get rejected during PEPL validation. Third, the invoice date must be after your company PEPL registration date. To send your e-invoicing using Sage 300, the first step that you need to do is to create invoice to your customer that has PEPL ID assigned to them. You have to make sure that your invoice has been posted before it can be processed by Sage 300 Invoice Now module. After your invoices has been posted in Sage 300, you can send this e-invoices to your customer via PEPL e-invoicing. Double-click on the invoice processing screen to run the program from Sage 300. In this screens, you can view all your invoices that still not yet sent out to PEPL network, or past invoices that has been sent out and view invoices that failed validation by PEPL. To view this invoices you need to filter under PEPL Fields section. Apart from that, you can also choose to view specific invoices by filtering the data in the starting value section. After you have done with your filtrations, you can click on Retrieve button to get your invoices display on the screen. After you click on Retrieve button, Sage 300 will display all the information on the screen that is matched with your filtrations. If you wish to view the original invoice, you can double-click on the invoice and Sage 300 will bring you to the details invoice entry transaction of that invoice. To send your invoices to PEPL Network, you can only send those invoices that has the PEPL status set to not sent. This checking is in place to make sure that you will not send the same invoices twice. Double-click on the selected column to change the value to yes. Alternatively, you can also click on Select Unselect All to batch set all your invoices to yes. By changing the selected column to yes, you have set your invoices to be sent out to PEPL Network. If you wish to view your invoices in structured PEPL format, which is UBL-XML, you can click on the Save to File. This actions will generate your invoices in a specific folder and you can view the files later in your computer. The sample XML file that is generated in Sage 300 is based on PEPL UBL-BIS format. You can use output generated from this file to view and validate if your invoice data was correct. Alternatively, for Singapore E-Invoice implementation, you can use the XML file generated from Sage 300 and validate this against Singapore Validate X tools. This website was provided by Singapore government as a free tool for you to check if your invoices has meet with PEPL standard validation. Please note that this checking tools is only valid for Singapore e-invoicing. The reason is because there is specific rules used only by Singapore government for their e-invoicing. To use Singapore Validatex tools, select your PEPL document type that you wish to be validate. Click on Browse button, or you can drag and drop the file that you have generated earlier in Sage 300. Wait until the website done with checking. If there is no error within your XML file, you will see a green icon next to your uploaded invoice. Click on Display button to display your XML file in structured PEPL format. After you have validate your XML file and there is no error found on the invoices, you can continue with submission of your e-invoice to PEPL Network. Click on Send button to send your invoice, and you will see your invoice status has been changed to Send. Apart from that, you will also notice that on the PEPL submission column, there is date written in this column to indicate when this invoice has been sent over to PEPL Network. Receive e-invoice using Sage 300. Before you can retrieve your supplier invoices, these are few checking that you have to make sure before you can proceed. First, you have registered with PEPL and have a valid PEPL ID assigned to your company. Second, you have assigned your supplier with the correct PEPL ID in the vendor maintenance screen. This is to make sure when you receive your supplier invoices from PEPL, Sage 300 can match their PEPL ID with the vendor code stored in the database. Third, the invoices that you are going to retrieve must be equal or after the last refresh date set in the setup. Alternatively, if you wish to view the invoices that is past the last refresh date, you can change this value in Company Setup screen. Fourth, make sure the invoice that you are going to retrieve has no error and passed standard PEPL validation or AP validation. This is because Sage 300 can only retrieve succeed invoices from PEPL Network. To receive your supplier e-invoice from PEPL Network, simply navigate to AP Invoice Processing screen. The main functions of this screen is to retrieve your supplier invoices and get this invoices to be import into Sage 300. So that you don't have to do any manual data entry creation for your supplier invoices. From the screen, you can filter your invoices by transaction number or transaction date range and fill the value in the starting value field selection box. You can also filter what invoices you want to display by using Import Status Filter checkbox selection. You can filter any invoices that has not imported into Sage 300, or past invoices that has been imported into Sage 300, or any invoices that has failed to import. Click on the Refresh button to get your invoices display into your screen. After you click on Refresh button, Sage 300 will display the results in the grid column based on your filtration you set on the above. And the number of records to be displayed is based on the setup that you set in the incoming invoice option setup screen. To retrieve latest invoice from Peppol Network, you can click on Retrieve button. This will retrieve any invoices that is dated during or after the last refresh date set on the top of the screen. Alternatively, you can change this last refresh date by going to Incoming Invoice option screen and change the value on the last retrieve date column. If there are invoices that can be retrieved, Sage 300 will display a message box to inform you on this. When retrieve new invoices from Peppol Network, Sage 300 will match the data based on vendor Peppol ID that you have set on the vendor maintenance screen. Beside that, a sequence number. If the invoices has been imported into Sage 300, system will reject such invoice to prevent the same invoices been imported twice into Sage 300. After your invoices has been retrieved from Peppol Network, you can import these invoices into Sage 300. Please note that you can only import those invoices with a status set as ready to import. Double-click on selected column to change the value to yes. You can also use Select All checkbox to set all your ready to import invoices into yes. This will help you to import your invoices into Sage 300 in batch process. By setting the value to yes in the selected column, you are telling Sage 300 to ready to import those invoices. If there is no invoice selected on the screen and you click on Import button, system will abort your import action and trigger a message box. After you have select your invoices to be imported into Sage 300, you can click on Import button to importing your supplier e-invoice into Sage 300. This will reduce manual data entry creation and help you process your invoices faster. After your import succeed, the import status will be changed to imported, and on the import batch entry column, there is batch number assigned to these invoices. You can check this batch number from Sage 300 AP invoice entry screen for a confirmation. In summary, digitalized invoicing processes promise huge cost savings compared to paper-based invoicing processes. The benefits of switching to e-invoicing include reduced entry errors, shortened processing times, and an increase in cash discounts. Peppol e-invoicing can vary from countries to countries and with different industries. Some countries adapting standard Peppol structure with additional changes to meet with their country requirements. With Sage 300 e-invoicing, it is easy for you to register your company to get a unique Peppol ID. You can send and receive your e-invoice automatically and store this data directly into your Sage 300 system.
Okay, before we go on to Q&A session, I just want to highlight with all of you some of the key information of what we have shared during today's session. Number one, Peppol can vary from countries to countries. Of course, different countries, right, can adapt to have different Peppol framework for their e-invoicing. If the countries decide to implement e-invoicing, they can either choose to adapt a full framework as defined by Peppol globally, or they can actually have a hybrid mode, have their own local rules with an advanced Peppol CTC model. For example, Singapore government's right, they adapt a full Peppol framework when they decide to implement e-invoice into their countries. While other countries like India, Italy, or Spain, they are actually adapting a hybrid mode with CTC model added to improve their tax submission. But one thing in common, right, even with CTC model added, most of them is still adapting with a standard Peppol framework, which used globally among participant countries. Second, our Sage 300 has been accredited as a Peppol-ready solution by Singapore government since 2019. What we have shared with you previously, right, on the Sage 300 during previous slide and the previous demo, right, is actually based on the Singapore Peppol model. you want to adapt Sage 300 e-invoicing into your country's e-invoicing model, of course, there is a modification need to be done to suit your country's rules and regulation. But with our past experience and knowledge that we gained during the implementation of this Sage 300 e-invoicing, we hope it can reduce the development times to get the modification done. Okay, and for today's sessions, right, I understand that majority of the participants is actually from Malaysia, and most of you probably have heard about Malaysia e-invoicing implementation on the next year.
Siti, are you going to share your slides?
Sorry, am I not sharing? Sorry. Oh, sorry, I'm actually sharing my slide. Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry. Sorry about earlier issue. Okay, so and for today's sessions, right, I understand most of the majority of participants is actually from Malaysia. So, and most of you, right, probably have heard about the news on the Malaysia e-invoicing implementation on next year, right? Just to share with you, at Sage, we try to get ourselves to be participant in this Malaysia e-invoicing implementation. And we are actually working together with local Malaysia tax agency to get ourselves notified, to get ourselves information on about this Malaysia e-invoicing implementation. And just to share with you, right, in next month, we as a software provider has been invited to going and attend their next month event for this Malaysia e-invoicing with LHDN Malaysia. Our knowledge on this Malaysia e-invoicing at this moment is probably still limited, but we still want to share with you on the timeline implementation. Okay, the Malaysia e-invoicing timeline, right, it is not a mandatory at least until January 2027. So, the timeline is actually starting on the next year, June 2025. If your company turnover per year, right, is more than 100 million, then it is a mandatory for you to start using Malaysia e-invoicing. Okay, and by beginning of the January 2025, if your company turnover is more than 50 million per year, then it is also mandatory. It's become mandatory for you to start using Malaysia e-invoicing. And following by the third phase, which is in 2026, if your turnover is more than 25 million per year, then you are also mandatory to start using Malaysia e-invoicing. And in the last phase, right, in January 2027, it is mandatory to all businesses to start using Malaysia e-invoicing. Okay. And the model that we know so far that is using by Malaysia is actually a CTC model. It's a hybrid from current PEPPOL framework. Okay. With this CTC model, right, all the invoices that is going, before you send your invoice to your customer, it has to get a verification. It has to get a verification from LHDN, from your tax agency. Okay. So for example, in here, right, if you want to issue invoice to your customer, okay, you will create invoice in Sage 300, and then your invoice, right, will be sent out to LHDN to get e-invoice verification. Okay, in here, right, LHDN will verify your e-invoice, and if everything is correct, they will issue a digital certificate to indicate that this invoice has been verified. And using the digital certificate, right, you can start sending invoice to your customer. Okay, for more details about this one, right, we will share with you after our next month event with LHDN Malaysia. Okay. Now we are moving to Q&A session. If you have any question you want to ask, please type in your question in the chat box.
Okay, so Siti, I will read out the question from the attendees that raised. So can the customer PEPPOL ID update based on the international PEPPOL list?
Okay. You mean your customer PayPal ID or your customer PayPal ID?
Customer PayPal ID.
Okay. If you want to get your PayPal ID, your customer PayPal ID, right? Okay. Again, PayPal can be vary from countries to countries. Different countries, right? They can implement their PayPal depends on their rules and regulation. Okay. For example, like Singapore, right? They have one website that is called paypaldirectory.sg. Okay, whereas you can find your customer or vendor PayPal ID from this website. But if you ask me globally, right, I'm not sure whether there is a such website, such kind of tools where you can find your customer or vendor PayPal ID globally. Okay.
Okay. So the next question is, they're also asking, right, are we possible to recall the wrong invoice or send to the PayPal network? Can they recall from there or not?
Sorry, Lynn.
The customer
Sorry.
the attendee is asking, is it possible they can recall the wrong invoice, but they are already sent to the PayPal network?
Okay, unfortunately, there is no such thing. You cannot recall your invoice. Okay, if you have already sent your invoice, right, then you need to, and then you found that this invoice is actually wrong, then you need to issue a credit note. There is no way you can retrieve it back or cancel whatever invoice you have sent to PayPal network unless you do a credit note transaction.
Credit note.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So the next question is, please advise the PayPal e-invoicing, has it covered Indonesia region and can it be used for Indonesian country?
Okay, as I mentioned previously, right? As I mentioned in my previous slide, right? Again, PayPal can be vary from countries to countries. Okay, for Indonesia, right? At this moment, our Sage 300 PayPal e-invoicing is based on Singapore PayPal model. Okay, if we want to start implement e-invoicing to your customer, to you in Indonesia, first thing first, we need to understand how actually your government doing your e-invoice implementation. We need to do a ground studies and whether if you want to directly use our Sage 300 e-invoicing, right, it's probably will not work that way. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so Indonesia, we are done. The next question is, does the invoicing import into the AP invoice? Does that mean that it will skip the PO invoice and match against the PO receipt?
To answer these questions, right, I probably need Evelyn help to answer.
No, currently the invoice that you receive from your supplier, right, it actually goes to your AP. It has nothing to do with the PO. You will create a batch in the AP as illustrated in the demo earlier. Whatever invoices that you receive from your supplier, when you click on the retrieve from the PayPal network, and then when you click on the import button, it will actually create a batch in the AP. So there is no matching against your PO or receipt or PO receipt.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the next question, it will be, which version of Sage 300 will be supported?
Okay. For Sage 300 e-invoicing, right, we are supporting Sage 300 2019 and above.
So which means that customer that in lower version like 2016, what should they do?
Okay, if you have lower version of 2018, right? If you, for example, you are using Sage 300 2018 and you want to start using Sage 300 e-invoice, okay, and you need to upgrade your version to the latest at least 2019. But we always recommend you, right, to upgrade to latest Sage 300 2023.
Okay, so the only option is to have Sage 300 to be upgraded, then we are able to integrate e-invoicing and run it accordingly. Okay, the next question is related with Singapore IRAS. Singapore IRAS has any mandatory rules for Singapore companies or not?
So far from our understanding, right, I think they haven't made it mandatory to all companies to use invoice now. Evelyn, correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, so actually IMD actually has been doing a lot of initiative, right? Even government, Singapore government, or they actually providing grants to encourage companies to start engaging using the e-invoice. So basically, they are trying to, as announced by MDA, eventually, currently, whatever companies that's dealing with government bodies, they can still use the vendor.gov to generate invoice to the government, but eventually this will be phased off, right? I think maybe in 1-2 years time, this will be phased off. So once this is phased off, no matter how, you have to use your accounting system to send your e-invoice through the PayPal network. That is the thing that they are trying to move towards to. Yeah.
Okay. Next question from Thailand customer. How about e-invoice in Thailand? We have a similar question.
It's a similar question to what Indonesia participant has been questioned before. Okay, and the answer is actually similar. If we want to implement e-invoice into your countries, right, your Thailand countries, right, then we need to understand your country's requirement, rules and regulation. Okay, of course, if you just want to use Sage 300 e-invoicing and then start using it to your e-invoice model, to your Thailand e-invoicing model, it requires some modification before we can deliver to you. Okay?
Okay. So the next question is this only applicable for invoices? How about the credit note and debit note?
Okay. So actually, right, for the PayPal e-invoice, they have covered invoice now. They have covered invoice and we also document type credit note. So yes, even though in our product demonstrations, right, we didn't mention to you, we didn't share with you on the credit note creation, but the model is actually the model is actually available for Sage 300 invoice now. Sorry, e-invoice. Okay? Yes, you can cover, it is cover credit note and debit note as well.
Okay, the next question is, I wish to clarify the CTC model being shared. Is it a confirmed one? Means, do we need IRB verification before sending it to our customer?
Okay, so far, I believe you are actually asking for Malaysia e-invoice, right? Okay.
Yes, it's a Malaysia.
So for the next year Malaysia e-invoice implementations, right, as we share with you, at this moment, this information, the model that we know is so far is actually, it's a confirmed model that is shared with us by LHDN. Okay. No, you cannot, the answer for your questions, right, you cannot exclude. You cannot, you still need, before your invoice goes to your buyer, right, it has to go to LHDN verification to get the digital certificate. So the answer is you cannot escape this verification process, because otherwise, right, you will not get your digital certificate to issue invoice to your customer.
Okay, so the next question is there any additional cost for using PayPal e-invoice?
I'm not sure to answer about this one. Is Evelyn or Jin Fang? Maybe you can help me to answer.
So Siti, I will answer. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So I for now I just use Singapore as an example. So Singapore, actually the fee charge is more from the access point. So basically, share by city, you can see for the e-invoice to work, right? It's not just like within Sage 300 we make it available. Like in Singapore, the government have certified certain access point, and for us, we work with Sesame. So at this moment, Sesame Singapore posts certain fee. And for Malaysia, for now, we are not able to answer. But from Sage perspective, actually at this moment, the invoice module for Singapore, the module itself, we make it free as long as you are on valid Sage cover. and the version which is support with e-invoice module is available. Okay, so I can say for the rest of the country, at this moment we can't confirm, because it depends on how each country going to roll out. And let's say, for example, if other country in the end also use adopt PEPL e-invoice, and even right, they say, oh, actually we don't mind, and Singapore government also agree for the other country also can register the PEPL ID through Singapore PEPL access point, then maybe we can adopt what actually based on what Sesame charge. So for now, we cannot make any conclusion, but for Singapore customer, actually, you should know what is the charge, and the charge at this moment is more for access point. Okay, hope I answered this question.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jifa.
Jifa.
So the next question is, this is very interesting. I think, Siti, you will. If with the e-invoicing, does that mean that the manual handwritten invoice not longer required or allowed?
Sorry, I could not hear you well.
I repeat the question. Interesting question.
Yeah.
With the e-invoicing, does that mean that the manual handwritten invoices not longer required or allowed to run in the business?
Okay, if you have manual invoices, probably even maybe you can help me to add in if you have any kind of idea. Evelyn?
Oh, okay. So basically, okay, in accounting perspective, right, you need to keep track of your accounting records for at least 7 years. Okay, most of the countries actually you need to keep your books for at least 7 years. So let's say if you are able to maintain in terms of your invoices in terms of digital invoice, then they can actually print it out subsequently. I don't see that there's a need for you to have a paper-based invoice. So basically, why actually everybody is going towards e-invoice, because of the eco. Okay, they want to cut down to save the trees. They want to cut down everything, go by the ecosystem. They want to cut down all the paper-based invoice. So with the e-invoice, if you actually implementing e-invoicing system, every invoices that you generate from the accounting system, definitely there is a record, right? You can literally save this as a PDF file, keep it into your hard disk or server or whatever. Then as a repository, for auditing purpose. Likewise, if you want to physically print it out, by all means. But the purpose of e-invoice is to discourage paper-based invoice. So everything is sent across the customer or supplier digitally. So that is why they want to encourage people to go towards the e-invoicing. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, so I think Evening and City, in fact, I downloaded the question and put it in our team chat because I didn't read it, right? Sometimes maybe didn't read too fast. For this question, I guess the user's question is, if let's say implemented e-invoice or you adopt e-invoice, can I still issue manual or even handwritten invoice? Okay, so yes, you can still do so. Like just now shared by City, right? So even in Singapore, the e-invoice module is already available, and currently, right, Singapore government is more in. Basically, the first step is for any company deal have transaction with government agency, you have to send the e-invoice to them. So basically, this is another option for now. Yeah, and really going forward, right, whether the manual invoice, handwritten invoice still allow or not, right, it highly likely it will depend on different countries, government mandate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Lynn, do we have any other questions?
Okay. The next question is, they're asking the credit note. I believe they have to go through the verification for tax authority as well.
Yes. For Malaysia, so far what we know, right, for Malaysia e-invoicing is not only capture on invoice, but credit note as well. But again, whether it's a mandatory to have a credit note, verification or digital certificate for credit note, right, we will share with you after we attend next month event with NHDN. Okay.
Okay. The next question is 6300 customer question. Can we switch on the module by country? Let's say Malaysia is going to be start soon, which is next year. Cambodia, they do not have. Thailand, not yet. Philippines, not yet. So the question is, they have multiple subsidiaries. Can they switch on the Malaysia one to start first? The rest just put on hold.
Sorry, Lynn, can you repeat again your question? The question?
The 6300 customer is asking, can they switch on their 6300 module by country? Because they have multiple country subsidiaries they to use. Malaysia is going to be start soon, which is next year. Cambodia, Thailand, and Philippines, they are not going to implement yet. So
Okay.
they do so.
Okay. For every module, right, for every PayPal e-invoicing, again, different countries can have different PayPal framework. Okay. And the way the data transfer, the way the invoice process, right, is different from countries to countries. If your company has has entity in Malaysia, and you also have entity in Thailand or Indonesia, which also implement e-invoicing, okay, it's definitely require different e-invoice module already. Okay.
Okay. The next question is, when the supplier invoice is imported to AP, please confirm if Sage user will still require to key in the optional field and to switch the GL account to complete the double entry in GL, because they have the header option field and the GL optional field as well.
Okay. If you are retrieve your supplier invoice, okay, and then import into Sage 300 AP invoice transaction, AP invoice batch list, okay, then you don't have to do any manual entry work actually. The data that is pop up into AP, the data that is flow into AP transaction list, right, is actually coming from your PayPal, coming from your supplier PayPal invoice. Am I answer the question?
That means they do not require to key in the optional field to GL account.
Yes.
Okay. This is the beauty. Having the e-invoicing module, does that mean that there will be two sets of customer and vendor lists to maintain? One in Sage 300 and the other one and the other set is in e-invoicing module.
Okay. Actually, right, when you see the setup required, okay, I just want to clarify with you. The vendor and customer setup screens, right, is a separate module from your customer or vendor master setup screen in Sage 300. It's a separate module, okay? The PayPal ID that you need to maintain for your customer and vendor, right, is actually coming from Sage 300 e-invoice module setup screen. So you don't have to maintain the same information in your customer or vendor, your Sage 300 customer or vendor setup.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes. The next question is, currently we are using separate system to generate invoice and interface the invoice into Sage 300. Question is, can we connect other system to PayPal instead of Sage 300?
To answer these questions, right, because in today's session, we are talking about Sage 300 e-invoicing and the capability of the Sage 300 e-invoicing. Actually, if you have another system and then you import your data from previous system, from your old system, from your second system, right, to Sage 300, then you want to start sending your e-invoice. You can actually send in your invoice that you have created in Sage 300. Okay. So to answer your question, whether you can implement into another system, right, it's definitely cannot. Our module, our Sage 300 e-invoice is based on Sage 300. Okay?
Okay. The next question is, does that mean that with company, they have to go to LHDN to register, then only they are able to proceed with the e-invoicing?
Okay, so to answer these questions, right, at this moment, we are still not sure what are the process, what are the behind process. We hope, right, before the rollout from LHD and in next year, we hope they can organize one customer session so that you can understand which process. At this moment, there is no information on the process from your customer side, from your side, that we can share with you. Okay?
Okay. The next question is, maintaining the digital invoice, does Sage include the storage with backup with the purchase of E-Invoicing module?
Sorry, I could not really hear you.
Okay. While maintaining the digital invoicing, does Sage include the storage with the backup with the purchase of invoicing module?
Oh, you mean for your backup? No, we don't have any backup for this e-invoicing.
Okay. We
I
left
think
yes, Evelyn?
if I'm not wrong, right, because if let's say the invoice issue from 6300, so that means, right, actually the invoice still within 6300. So if they do the proper backup for 6300, that means actually it's just with same as other whatever document if they have backup when they use 6300. So but for Sage, right, we don't provide a separate backup and then actually like data center just to backup those invoice. Okay, it's still within your server when you issue as per your normal invoice. Okay. And then I saw there is one question the customer is asking, right? Because actually it's not every version support e-invoice. So the customer is asking, is there any campaign for lapsed customer? So it means the customer Sage cover have lapsed to upgrade newer version. Yes, we do have the campaign, and actually it's a very good promotion for now. And it will end at 28 August. So it means, right, you must either renew your Sage cover or either buy the whole set new. If later you want the free 6300 e-invoice module for Malaysia. Okay. Okay, then back to you.
The next question is, customer itself, they have their own invoicing system. Did we still need to get approval from LHDN, or we have to use a software that is highly recommended by LHDN?
Okay, again for your question, for these customer questions, right? Since you are already have your own e-invoicing module, okay. I'm not sure what are the process. If you want to know in details, right, you can probably contact LHDN to get more information on what step that you need to done. Okay.
Okay. We left one more minute, so we will just answer one or two questions. There are more and more questions coming, but we just put it at hard stop at one more minute. When are we expecting for the next update? I answer these questions. The next update is after when we have received the first event from the LHDN that we are going to attend as a principal. It will be the 3rd of July, after which we are going to do an episode 2 webinar for Malaysia or the e-invoicing update. So look out for the announcement. We are likely to run another webinar in July. The next question is it only Sage user can register for Apple ID?
No, actually, no.
Not
Everyone can
necessary.
register. I mean, not necessary. It is not necessary. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to pose the last question is that this is the Sage 300 user. They have bought the Sage 300 on 2018. They are not using it because of some business natural, because they are not able to fix it, and we are already customized on ARAP on it, and we need training. Is there any training provided in Malaysia So customer, we will look up to you and connect with you shortly. We will arrange with partner to come in to assist your request.
No,
Yeah.
I can answer this question. They can actually, I'm sure our Sage cover team, but if not, right, they can always send the email to info.asia. Again, currently, in fact, we have a Sage University training, and to every customer actually offer, regardless whether you have ready Sage cover or not. So actually, you are entitled free 3-month access to Sage University, and there is a very comprehensive training. So any customer, if let's say you have a new staff or you really want to enhance your knowledge with Sage 300, Lynn, I think, do you have how can they contact us? Can you maybe share our email? They can send in to info.asia@sage.com. Okay.
For the post after the webinar, tomorrow you'll be received the PowerPoint and presentation note as well as survey. You can put down the further question that you want to ask as well as email contact. We are able to assist you from there. Like say the Sage University course that is that's empower for Sage 300 user. You can learn at your own pace because there are several learning courses available for the new employee as well as the regular user. We will share the email with you and the contact. Okay, I think that's about it for today. Siti, do you have anything to add on here? Evelyn, Jinfang?
Not from my side. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Do complete the survey question, and if let's say you have further question, you maybe some of the question we may not answer, just help us to complete the survey and indicate what you would like to find out more. And for those customer, especially either Singapore or Malaysia customer, because the implementation of e-invoice is already on the way, and currently we do have a campaign. Please either contact Sage or contact your partner, and then to find out how can you benefit from this campaign. Okay, that's all from me, Lynn.
Okay. That's about it. The last key takeaways for you guys to know, for the attendees to know, for Sage 300 user as well. Take note, for invoicing that is applicable, you must have the latest upgrade version, at least 29, Sage 300 2019 and above. So check out your system. If you are using lower than that, you need to upgrade accordingly. We reach out to us and we will assist you accordingly. Well, thanks for today. It's coming to the lunchtime. I hope you will be having a good lunch as well with a good day ahead. We will see you again in the next month webinar. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Goodbye.